let's get straight into it. And I'm going to ask you guys for your permission. I want you guys to allow me to be as honest and real and give you the tough love that you need right now. Because the reality is, you're here because you want to take your business to the next level. You guys have no problem with showing up and being consistent. I'm not speaking to the person who's having a consistency problem. Speaking to the person who's having a converting problem. So I have to keep it real with you guys and give it the way you need to hear it. Okay. Let's get into why curiosity doesn't convert. Okay, I want to specifically elaborate on the fact that this is for the person who's showing up consistently. Okay, you're posting, you're going live, you're being authentic, you're creating that educational content, you're being relatable. So here's what's actually happening, and you guys are probably not even realizing it. You guys are building actively curiosity momentum, and you're not building that commitment momentum. And that's where the shift needs to happen. That is the gap that you are experiencing in your business right now, and we are here to close that gap. I want you guys to understand that these are two completely different psychological outcomes. Let's take a second and really take a step back and analyze what the curiosity stage looks like. I want you guys to remember where you were and how long you were there before you finally decided to commit and get started on this digital marketing journey. I know for me personally, I was in that curiosity stage for 6 weeks. The timing looks different for everyone. So remember, again, it's so easy to beat yourself up and feel like, oh my God, I suck at this. I'm not doing this right. I don't think I can ever be good at this. I'm doing everything right and I'm not seeing results. No, everyone's timing looks different. And we have to take ourselves back to the time where we were there. So understand that this is a real phase people are growing through. Okay, you guys, the curiosity stage is when people are watching your stories every single day. Do you guys have people that you see? You're like, I see them watching me. They're showing up, watching your stories every single day. They're liking your posts consistently. They are truly your biggest fans, right? They're asking you questions in your DMs. They're sending you voice notes. They're telling you, yes, I'm interested when you're on live. They're saying, I want more information. They're asking those questions. They're saving your content. Right? They're sharing the post that you share because they're actually interested. They're engaging in your lives. They're doing all the things that you would expect someone to do once they're ready to get started. I want you guys to understand what happens in this curiosity stage, okay? Curiosity creates engagement. Engagement is going to feel like progress, but engagement does not necessarily mean that someone is going to commit with you. Okay, curiosity for the buyer. And again, put yourself back to where you were watching and just curious, but not ready to commit yet. And remember, when you were curious, there was no risk involved, right? You were in that curiosity stage. You were just watching, interested, right? Liking what you saw, but there was no risk involved. There's no identity shift that you had to make, right? Like you're not required to grow, to change. You're just going to sit on the sidelines and keep watching. There's no real responsibility. There's no investment that needs to be made. This is why the curiosity stage for many people feels the safest, and it's why a lot of your customers stay there in that phase for the longest. Here's the truth. Curiosity allows someone to feel involved without having to change or make that commitment. Curiosity for many people, it feels productive because they're entertaining the idea of something new. They're entertaining the idea of maybe one day trying, but it doesn't require anything to actually be done right now. It doesn't require an immediate change or feeling uncomfortable or a transformation. So here's where the psychological component in all of this comes in. The reality is that the brain loves curiosity. It just naturally does. Why? Because it feels like a forward motion. When you're curious about something and entertaining the idea about something, it releases dopamine. It feels like, oh my God, I'm actually learning something new. It feels like growth is happening when growth is not really taking place. It requires zero vulnerability from your buyer's part. But commitment, that's so scary for many people. And again, remember where you were there. Commitment requires exposure. It requires someone, me on the other side of the screen watching you, it requires me to call myself out, to call out the fact that I'm not where I want to be financially, to call out the fact that what I'm doing right now is not going to get me where I want to be, right? Like it requires that real moment of clarity and accountability. And not a lot of people are ready to admit certain things to themselves. So they rather stick around and just keep watching because it feels like something is happening and I'm gonna do something, but not quite yet. For someone to commit, you guys, the reason why it's so scary for people to take that next step is because, let's be real, it requires money leaving their account. And a lot of people are struggling when it comes to finances. It requires them admitting that they actually need help. It requires them acknowledging that it's time to step into a new version of themselves. It requires them to be okay with risking failure. So, unless the emotional certainty aspect is strong, the brain naturally chooses curiosity because it's what feels the safest. If you guys are showing up and doing everything right, I want you to understand one thing. You're not competing with another program. You are not competing with another person. You are competing with safety. So now let's talk about the commitment stage, you guys. The reality is this is the stage we want our buyers to get to as quickly as possible, but this is the hardest stage for people to transition to. And again, I'm asking you to take yourself back to before you started so you can really relate to your leads and understand where they're coming from, okay? Commitment requires emotional certainty, and not a lot of people have that. It requires that identity shift, that realization of, I am not good with where I am right now, and something needs to change. It requires that financial contribution, that financial action. And again, you're asking someone who is struggling so much financially, because let's be honest, most people who start an opportunity like this is not because they have money, it's because they really need money. And having to put the little bit that they have, it feels scary, it feels unsafe. Remember, commitment requires trusting the outcome. And a lot of people have a hard time trusting that this is actually something that's going to work for them. And most importantly, that commitment, getting someone to that commitment stage, it's not really them trusting in you, it's trusting in themselves enough to get started with you. Interest is emotional and commitment is neurological. What do I mean by that? Interest happens in an emotional state. When you're feeling emotional about something, you're like emotionally invested, right? But commitment, that happens when the nervous system feels safe enough to move forward and act upon something. That's why people can feel so excited and like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm loving everything I'm seeing. But for some reason, they're not buying. I want you guys to remember, don't get excited off of someone else getting excited, right? Because excitement is not certainty. Certainty is when someone can make a calm, rational, and assertive decision knowing that this is the right next step they need to take. Now, let's get into the content mistake that most sellers create. Okay, you guys? And again, I have to be real with you guys and I have to be honest because I want you guys to see progress once you're done with this module. Okay, most sellers are so focused on like, and again, the content pillars, we talk about it in SWC. They are important, but we got to dig a little deeper, you guys. Okay, most of you guys are focused on creating that educational content, creating that motivational content, creating the informational content, the relatable content, but you're not focused on transformation clarity content. And that is where everything is going to change for you. That is where you are going to start closing sales. That is when you are going to level up in every aspect of your business. This is when the actual shift happens, you guys, because the reality is if someone cannot clearly picture who they will become from getting started with you, what the outcome is going to look like for them, what's going to be different for them, what is going to become easier for them from starting something like this, what stops becoming hard for them, they're just going to stay in that curiosity stage. Because the reality is that vague transformation, people perceive it as a huge risk. And perceived risk is only going to slow people down from making that decision to get started. So now let's have a moment of truth. And I want to ask you guys an honest question. And I need you to answer this to yourself honestly, okay? If someone landed on your page today, could they clearly describe who they will become once they start working with you? I'm not talking about what they're getting. Yes, they're going to get SWC. I'm not talking about what you're going to teach them. They're going to gain all of this knowledge and information, right? But who they become. If the answer is no, you have a certainty gap. And that is the gap we are working to fill in this module to get you to start closing those sales you're looking to close.